one of the world's fastest growing supplement brands ever recorded in the history.
IM8 went from 0 to 100 million in annual run rate in 11 months, making it one of the fastest growing companies in the world right now. And today I'm interviewing the founder, Danny. Danny went from selling baseball cards at 12 to taking a unicorn to the NASDAQ to today building IM8 with David Beckham. And what makes this interview so unique is that I was able to see the entire growth journey from the inside. Because my agency Accelerated worked with IM8 since day one.
It made a lot of sense to work with you and the team so that you guys can handle all of the CRO work, and then our attention and resources and focus goes to the acquisition piece of things. Your methodology, your testing, the resources, the software that you guys had.
We built the funnels, we've crafted the offers, and we tested hundreds of iterations. So in the next 45 minutes, Danny gives a look behind the scenes of what actually made IM8 so successful. We talked about the marketing strategy that enables IM8 to spend $200,000 per day on ads profitable.
If you look at our meta ads library, it's about 2,000 live ads at any time. I think when we launched maybe 15, 16 months ago, we were probably maybe at 50 ads, 100 ads.
We talked about how they maximize their customer lifetime value with a unique subscription offer.
Once they have the product for 90 days, that means it becomes part of your daily routine, and they're going to more likely stick to it than if they're just using it for, let's say, 30 days, right?
And we talked about how they managed to get David Beckham as a co-founder. Danny shared a lot of things that he never talked about before publicly.
I think in the next thing, I would say next 3 to 5 years, we believe IM8 can be.
If you're in e-commerce, this is the most valuable video you're going to watch this month. So let's get straight into it. Danny, thank you so much for doing this. I've been super excited to do this for weeks. And before we get into everything, I just want to have the people understand who you are, right? Because you've built a lot of incredible things and companies along your career. So to start simple, if somebody is watching and they haven't heard of you or IM8 yet, who are you and what are you building right now?
Thanks, Carl, for having me on. A bit about myself. Always been an entrepreneur. Started working at the age of 12 selling baseball cards. 15 was a telemarketer. At 24, launched my first business, which was a restaurant. So very, very different. Did that for 3-4 years in the US. I then did hotel furniture, import, export from China into the US, work on custom furniture for hotels. In 2010, I moved from the US to Hong Kong to launch You Buy, I Buy, which was a group buying website. After 6 months, Groupon acquired majority stake in the company. 3 years later, they acquired the rest of the company, grew that to about 200 million annual revenue across East Asia. And then 2014 started Prenetics, which is the parent company of IM8. And Prenetics, we started off as a life sciences diagnostic testing company. When COVID hit, we pivoted to doing significant amounts of PCR testing to the tune of about 800 million revenue over a 3-year period of time. In total, we did roughly about 28 million PCR laboratory tests. So it was crazy, massive operations at scale. At one point, we were doing 40,000 tests daily, right? So this was during COVID 2020, 2023. And of course, post-COVID, they're like, shit, there's no more testing. And what do we do, right? So we knew we needed something that had high growth potential as well as very large TAM, right? Total addressable market. And coincidentally, at the same time, I had the opportunity to meet with David Beckham via a mutual friend. We connected in London, and the rest. What they say, the rest is history. Right? We got along really well. We came together and co-founded IM8, which now has been one of the world's fastest growing supplement brands ever recorded in the history of the industry.
Yeah, that's super exciting. And I mean, it's a really outstanding career, right? You've built so many super successful companies. And for me, what was really, really interesting is that some people, they have like 1 successful companies or 2 successful companies, but you've just had a track record at building successful companies. So what would you say was like the one common thread from starting to sell baseball cards at 12 to then what you said, bringing a unicorn to NASDAQ to so many successful companies, and now again, building one of the fastest growing companies worldwide with IM8?
I mean, at the core, it starts with having a really differentiated product, right? Because no matter how great your marketing is, blah, 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 et cetera, wise, right? If you don't have a great product, it doesn't withstand time, right? And even for now, our business is completely on subscription. I mean, I wouldn't say completely, but 80% of our customers are on subscription. So if they don't continue to subscribe, and that means they'll only continue to subscribe if the product works and you feel the difference. And then so going back to your question, I think the commonality between all the different businesses I built was focusing, number one, on making sure that we have a differentiated product than the other competitors, because once you do, then this is where you're able to have a lot of opportunity from marketing, brand, and positioning perspective.
Yeah, 100%. And now speaking specifically about IM8, if you just had 10 seconds to convince somebody about the product, what would you say?
Yeah, 10 seconds. I mean, it's very simple, Wise, right? IM8 is a clinically proven powder supplement. You mix in water, and basically you take care of 16 different supplements in one drink. So it takes less than 20 seconds to do, and you take it in the morning and takes care of 16 supplements, right? So we identified a gap in the market where a lot of people, they want to take care of their bodies and their health, but no one wants to take 15, 16 different supplements. Yeah? There must be a better way. And so we're able to create 90 ingredients in one drink, and that you just take it and forget about it. And it's proven, NSF certified for sport. We've done clinical trials, and the taste is great, right? So the combination of all these aspects came together.
Yeah. Sweet. And I do have a couple of follow-up questions because I think there's a lot of differentiators and USPs around the product, so I will just ask them in a second. One thing that I want to highlight, because I mean, I've worked with you guys for like 18 months. I've seen everything from day one, and what I think most of the people from the outside looking at IM8, they just see David Beckham, right? And for me, I was fortunate enough to see like how you and the team and everybody in the background operates. And what I want to do with the next couple of questions is just focus on what really happened behind the scenes, because the one mistake that a lot of people do looking at it from the outside is like, yeah, IM8, David Beckham, super easy. If I would have had David Beckham, I could have a super successful company too, right? But from my perspective, they're completely wrong, right? So what would you say? What are like the main things, maybe the three biggest things outside of the celebrity brand that really had the biggest impact on the overall growth trajectory and the success of IM8?
Yeah, so I mean, a very fair point, right? I think a lot of people tell me, oh, you got David Beckham, blah, 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 all this stuff, right? But I think, to be fair, it was incredible to get David on, right? Number one. However, just having a big face attached to any brand or any company does not guarantee success. We've seen countless times of major celebrities that are backed in different products and they fail, right? But I think what was special about us is that, again, we had David Beckham on board, but we also, again, focused on the product and the science of the product. At the same time, we built a very strong scientific advisory board, right? The likes of Dr. Don Musalam, from Mayo Clinic. We've got Professor Suzanne from Cedars-Sinai, and now we have 9 scientific advisory board members that I talk to on a regular basis, and these are individuals that create the formulation as a collective basis, right? And then so building that foundation was core, and of course then everything is on social, right? So I think we've done a really great job from a performance marketing piece of things, and it's a constant iteration of testing that goes on every single day, right? We're not going to get everything right, but I think the fact that we've been able to scale very aggressively over the last 15, 16 months, and having a strong retention engine creates a lot of opportunity for us, right? I think if you looked at our website from day one, a lot of people have commented to, wow, this website is one of the best they've seen in the industry, right? And then so a lot of different details around the brand, the positioning, even the product packaging, right? In terms of the color red, there hasn't been any real red powders before, right? Yeah. So we really took an opportunity and a chance even going with something very unique to the market. When you open the package, right, that all the details around the unpackage, the unboxing experience, the octagon shaped container. So there's a lot of different details. The NSF certification for sport, the third-party testing by Eurofins. So I would say there's probably 100 other pieces of information or details that we got right from day one on top of having this association with David Beckham. But to be fair, I think even with David, again, you have to have a good product, and then David really helped to cut through that noise, right? Because if you have David, people will pay attention, then they'll look into the ingredients, they'll look into the background, they'll look into science. So having David certainly opened a lot of doors and cut through that noise.
Yeah, 100%. So just to summarize from my end, right, I would say there are like three main aspects. Number one, unique product formulation, so like a really, really high quality product. Number two, really strong marketing engine. And then number three, I would almost call it like attention to detail, right? There are so many small things that you just paid attention to. And from my end, like I always thought the whole octagon shape, the whole red branding was so well thought through in terms of there are hundreds of brands that try to have like a supplement like this go to market, and it's another greens powder that doesn't taste good in the same packaging, right? So I think there's like so many details that you got right, especially with me. Like I bought it directly, I started drinking it, and for me one huge thing was the flavor. It just tasted amazing, right? So I gave it to a lot of my friends, just send it to them, like Hudson from Comfort, right? I sent it to him like already a year ago before I introduced you guys, or Toby Pierce or Davey, like a lot of my good friends. I just sent the product to them and I was like, try it out. It's an amazing product. It tastes amazing and you're going to love to use it. And I think that just shows like how much attention and energy you put into the product, the formulation, and then also the brand itself. And I think that those are all like huge factors of the overall success, because you said it correctly, right? There's so many celebrity brands that fail because celebrities, they get a lot of attention and some form of trust, but then there's a whole bigger part of the overall equation of the success that you have to get right.
And then the key thing on that too, Carl, is that a lot of people ask me, hey, why did David want to partner with you, right? Correct? And then I think key thing, I told him, hey, David, this brand can't live with you. Yeah, it has to be bigger than you as an individual, right? I'm not going to depend this brand on you. So a lot of brands, when they have a big celebrity, they believe the celebrity will do the bulk of the work, and then they don't focus on all the other key pieces that matter, right? I'm going to give you another two examples. I'm sure you may have heard that brand Ladder before. They had LeBron James and Tom Brady. I mean, arguably two of the biggest sports people in the world, right? Yeah. And what happened? They failed. Right? Or even more recently, last year, I think, Lionel Messi launched a hydration drink, Mass Plus, right? And, it failed, right? But that, so, but if you look at the product in terms of what they built, it was more of a Me Too type of product, and they expected the celebrity to carry the brand, but the reality, the brand has to carry itself and not depend on the celebrity to carry it.
That's a good quote. And I think what I wanted to do next is like really go into the product itself, because that's also like one of the things that I appreciate and respect most about you as the founder, because, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, but you started with the formulation and the product before the brand, right? And you said this in another podcast that a lot of brands, or a lot of companies, they start with the branding, with the logo, and then afterwards think about the product to kind of fit that, right? Or a lot of brands, they may know and understand marketing, but then the product doesn't deliver on the promises that they sell to the customer, right? And you said this earlier in the podcast too, is that especially in the health and wellness space, subscription and customer loyalty is huge, right? You already said that you have 80% of customers on subscription, which is amazing. And I mean, you have a huge retention and customer lifetime value because the product is amazing, right? So what I see a lot of brands is that they are amazing at marketing and sales and they scale up really quickly, but then they have a really quick downfall too because the product doesn't deliver. Yeah. So maybe you can just kind of take us through this a bit. You already mentioned certain aspects in terms of the formulation, in terms of certain certifications, but maybe just your thought process around how did you came up with the formulation and what really makes the product itself so special?
Sure. I mean, Carl, I think for us wise, again, even with me and David early on, right, it wasn't a brand that we wanted to build for the next 1, 2, or 3 years. We wanted to say if we did something together, we're thinking very long term. The next 5, 10, 15, 20 years is that we wanted to build a truly global brand. So how do we do that? Number one, starting with a great, amazing product. And again, we started looking in terms of all the competitors in the field, right? Obviously, there's AG1, Heal, some of the other ones that are out there. And it's like, okay, where do we see the gaps in the market? Number one, a lot of the things is gaps in the market is that a lot of these other companies, they have a lot of ingredients, but they actually don't have enough clinical dosages of the ingredients. That then make a big difference. Yeah. So for example, for us, we have, of course, all of your multivitamins A to Z at clinical dosages. We have adaptogens. We also have premium ingredients such as prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics. So there's three of the symbiotics, as well as, for example, 100 milligrams of CoQ10, which is a clinical dosage. Just CoQ10 alone is going to cost you $30 a month, right? Just that 100 milligrams. Right? We also have 1,500 milligrams of MSM, for your joints, hair, skin, and nails, right? Again, just MSM alone is going to cost you $20, $25, right? So we already have 2 ingredients out of 90 ingredients that on a monthly basis you'll pay $50 alone. Right? And then we're charging $89 on the monthly subscription for 90 plus ingredients. So if you look at it that perspective, again, I always feel your product also has to deliver value to the customer, and ultimately that's what we believe we did. Because if you think about the surface, $90 a month, it's definitely not expensive, but it's also not cheap, right? It's an affordable premium product that if you care about your health and you want the best, this is the product for you.
Yeah, 100%. And for me, it was interesting that you already had a super strong formulation. You went to market with that. And then at a certain point, you were like, okay, there's some small details and iterations that we can make even better. And then you came up with like a second iteration of the product. Maybe you can quickly talk about the thought process behind that of after a certain period in the market, even like fine-tuning the product, making some ingredients bigger in terms of the quantities, adding some ingredients to the formulation.
Yeah, 100%, right? So I think, of course, once we launched the brand, it was basically December of 24, right? And then, of course, after about 3-4 months, we've gotten a lot of customer feedback, and that's very important to me in terms of, okay, how are customers feeling, et cetera, and what are certain things they would want to see in the formulations. And then so after about 4 to 5 months, we collect a lot of this customer feedback, and we collated together and working together with our scientific advisory board, and we basically upgraded the formulation, with certain ingredients and further increasing the dosages, right? Even further, like for example, vitamin D, we increased that. We added new ingredient, saffron, as well, 30 milligrams, again, with clinical dosages. We added 500 milligrams of MSM from 1,000 to 1,005, right? And we also added additional 2 flavors of mango passion fruit and lemon lime orange. And so this combination effect, again, created a great feedback loop for the customer that's, oh, you know what, these are certain things that we want to see. And about a few months earlier in the year, we launched our new Essentials Pro version, and it was very well received by the market. Because we also, some people, individuals, no matter how great they like the taste, hey, people want variety, right? And then, so this is where the new flavors came into play as well.
Yeah.
So constantly have to innovate, for the customer.
Yeah, I think that's great. And as I said earlier, like that's what I really appreciate about you as like a founder and operator, that you put the product and the customer first, right? It's like the same what Jeff Bezos always tells to his team, like obsess with the customer, put the customer first, right? And I think that really pays out for the company over a longer term period.
Yes.
So I think, and that's why I wanted to put so much like attention to the product, the formulation, and the operations behind it, just because I really think this was a huge differentiator for you guys. And to kind of go into the next section of the podcast, I really would want to focus on like the scale that you were able to achieve, right? Because what's really wild about IM8 is 0 to 100 million ARR in 11 months, right? So I remember our first conversation, like December 2024, like it was yesterday. And then 11 months later, you already were at 100 million ARR, and just the trend keeps rising, right? With the monthly revenue and the ARR. So maybe we can just talk some minutes to talk about how you managed to pull that off, right? So if you look at that potentially first 11 months, right, you outpaced a lot of the fastest growing supplement brands. You even outpaced a lot of the fastest growing AI startups. So how were you able to pull this off in the matter of 11 months?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, right? It seems like a blur, yeah, in many aspects. But again, we went from, I remember the first month revenue of 581,000 USD, and then month 11 we went into basically 10 million monthly revenue, right? And of course, through that 11 months, there was a lot of factors in that. We actually had our first offline event in January of 25. And then so again, we were on the Today Show, so we got a lot of publicity because of David Beckham. And then we utilized that to further utilize that as a social proof element and further gain traction on social media, right? Because again, we're only on socials. I mean, on direct DTC, we have no retail presence, zero. And then in the summer of 2025, we also got a significant boost when I received an email from Aryna Sabalenka's team. And it was a crazy email because Aryna Sabalenka's team said, hey, you know what? Aryna's been taking IM8 and she would like to know if we were interested in partnering with her. Right? And again, this is coming from the world #1 tennis player at the time. And then so we actually had no idea she was on the product. Right? But she was on the product for about 3 months, because due to her performance coach, Jason Stacy, they were looking for a new supplement regime. He tried it. He gave it to her. She felt significantly higher energy levels and recovery levels. And then she was like, hey, she wants to partner. And then I met her and we got along really well. And then we announced a partnership in June of 2025. And then with having her on board, again, coupled with David Beckham, I think that just created a lot of trust in this community and customers, which is, again, you can't orchestrate that, and that was truly organic. So I think we saw a big uplift in June once we did that. And again, this is leveraging that authority figure and with social performance marketing. Right? And then later in the year, October-wise, we launched our longevity product, which then created a Beckham stack, which is the combination of the essentials and longevity together. But I think going through this whole time, it was constantly testing also in terms of understanding what works, what doesn't. At the same time, also getting the best doctors, scientists, dietitians, nutritionists also on board to share that message. Because again, having David and Aryna is great, but we also work with another 1,000 plus affiliates and individuals that support the company because they love the product and the brand.
Yeah, super interesting. But then that again shows that you have to have a great product, right? Because otherwise, this whole organic introduction wouldn't have happened, right? Maybe otherwise. So yeah, that just speaks again to you have to really obsess with the product. So I think that's really, really one huge takeaway for everybody listening and all of the founders to obsess with the product and the customers. Sweet, I appreciate you sharing that. So one thing that really, really struck out for me is that, and you mentioned this across numerous podcasts, is that 80% of your orders are on subscriptions, right? And I know that we tested a lot of different offers and also switched from like a 30-day subscription to a 90-day subscription. You changed the formulation, you built the Beckham stack. What were your main thought process behind coming up with the offer for customers that really worked?
Yeah, so I think we tested a few different pricing models, right? I think, again, we now have our current funnel, or at least subscription options, is that a customer in the US, for example, is $112 one-time purchase. 30-day is $89 monthly. 90-day is $78, which basically on a 3-month basis, on a quarterly basis, $235. And then so they pay upfront and they get a discount, of course, upfront, right? So you have a savings of 20% if you do monthly, and you have a savings of 30%. Okay? And you also give free gifts. Yeah, so I think the combination of the offer plus the free gifts, it makes it easy for the customer to commit. And we've also seen significant success with the quarterly subscription, which we rolled out early this year, in which right now approximately 40% of all subscriptions are actually on a quarterly. And that's also important because once they have the product for 90 days, that means it becomes part of their daily routine. And that means once it's part of their daily routine, that they're going to more likely stick to it than if they're just using it for, let's say, 30 days, right?
Yeah. And I think this is huge, right? So on the one hand side, the product and formulation has to be great, but secondly, and I see this a lot with like health and wellness brands, that sometimes customers, they buy the product, but then they don't really utilize it, or they take it for a week and then they're off the product again, right? But I mean, and you've said this yourself, and we've seen it in the studies, that over a certain period, let's say 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, they're going to experience more of the benefits of the products, right? So I think that's just really, really smart that you focused on that 90-day subscription as like part of the whole offer. And it also shows in the data, right? Just so that so many people take that variation and
also
staying
just to
on
share
that,
on
right?
that, and just a point on the 90-day piece, right? Is that, previous to the 90-day, we had a 30-day money-back guarantee. Right, and that applies to every customer, regardless one-time and monthly subscribers. So, but because we introduced a 90-day, then we actually had to introduce a 90-day money-back guarantee, right? And then, to be fair, you can only do that if you know your product's good, correct? Right? Because, it's quite a lot, right? You're talking about $235, right? It's not talking about $89. So, I think we were very confident. Again, people will feel the effects, feel the difference, and this is why, our refund rates are less than 2%, even with a 90-day money back, no questions asked guarantee.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think outside of the offer, because the offer is like really great, and also how you build it now with the 90-day subscription, what do you think on the marketing side was one of the biggest things, or like one strategy that really set you guys apart from everybody else?
I think on the marketing side, just quality of content. I think that's very, very important, right? Because I think now I think if you look at our meta ads library, it's about 2,000 live ads at any time. And so we were able to scale the velocity of this. Right? I think when we launched maybe 15, 16 months ago, we were probably maybe at 50 ads, 100 ads at any given time early on. So being able to scale to 2,000 live ads means a lot of iterations, a lot of new content, to avoiding creative fatigue, especially the meta algorithms constantly get changed, right? And then so I think always making sure that we have lots of new content and testing different angles, different personas, testing many different landing pages. So right now we have anywhere from 40 to 50 different landing pages live, depending on which type of ad that you click into.
Yeah,
because that's going to be, I would say, one of the key things to be able to unlock meta spend at good ROAS, right? Otherwise, if you're just not innovating or not having enough content at high volumes and great content, it's just going to be very difficult for you to scale.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing that I think is still interesting, and I can feel it right now again talking to you, this has been the same on every call, you have a huge conviction with this business and the brand and the product, right? And what was fascinating for me, that even in like the very first call, you already had this conviction of this is going to be huge, and that conviction transferred to me, and I was like, this is going to be the next big thing, just based off your conviction of how you transferred everything and talked to me about the brand. Where did that conviction in the early days come from, where you knew this is going to be huge?
To be fair, we knew we had a great product, right? I can't say, even to me and David, we can't say that we knew we were going to hit 100 million AR in 11 months. I think if I told him that, he would probably not talk to me. He'd probably thinking I'm like bullshitting, right? Because it hasn't been done before, right? So there was no way we could have predicted that. But again, we started with a great product, and then that great product just resonated and translated to consumers wanting something that was just great. We knew we had a great product. I knew it was going to be successful. Now, I didn't know how successful it was going to be, or how long of a time it would take to get there, right? Because there's so many different factors involved. But again, we're incredibly grateful for the traction and success that we've have had in the last 15, 16 months. And that just gives us further fuel, right? Further fuel to innovate, further fuel to develop new products for the field to give back to our customers, right? And one part of the things that we just recently announced, literally a few weeks ago, is we announced a partnership with Vitamin Angels. And again, giving back has always been the core of what we want to do. And we announced a partnership with Vitamin Angels, again, which where every single purchase that you make is contributing to the commitment that we are going to be committing to providing funding for 400,000 kids and pregnant women that are underprivileged around the world. Right? And then so I think this is very important because, again, creating a business is all great and etc., but we're not giving back to the community or underdeserved communities. Why are we doing what we're doing, right? So I think this was something that was very important to David and myself to have this partnership with Vitamin Angels.
Yeah, I love that. That's really cool. I think one thing that we've talked a lot about was like the product, the formulation, the strategy, marketing, Facebook ads. And like one recurring pattern was that you talked about testing, you talked about gathering data from the customer, seeing what works, what doesn't work, right? Iterating all of the time, right? So I think there wasn't 1 month where you didn't want to iterate anything, test anything, right? So maybe just from your perspective, what made you in the early days say, hey, I want to work with Carl and the team at Accelerated to help with like zero in funnels and just kind of really get this piece of the puzzle of like always test on the funnels, on the offers, UX, UI, and copy?
Yeah, because I think to be fair, once for any new brand that's starting out, right, there's just so much to do on a daily basis, and there's no way you can do everything because you just don't have your resources and team set in place. Yeah, so I think early on as a new brand, it made a lot of sense to work with you and the team so that you guys can handle all of the CRO work, and then our attention and resources and focus goes to the acquisition piece of things.
Yeah, 100%. And for me, again, and I mentioned this numerous times to the podcast, you make decisions super fast, right? And also with us, right? Like we jumped on the call and there was literally like 30 minutes and you made a decision that takes other founders weeks, especially in the early days. What did you see, or what did you see before the call where you said, okay, these guys are the right partner?
No, I mean, I think I would always believe I have a good judgment. After talking to someone for a few minutes, I know if this guy's bullshitting me or not, right? So, I think just from my past experience as an entrepreneur, meeting so many different people. So I think after talking to you for a few minutes, I think it just made a lot of sense in terms of all the different things that you were saying, how your methodology, your testing methodology, the resources, the software that you guys had. And again, I think as an operator, etc., I do believe speed is critical because I think a lot of times founders, regardless of picking a company or an agency to work with, they're too slow to act on things. And not all decisions will turn out to be the correct decisions, but I do believe if you're able to act fast and iterate and kill off, where not the best decision have been made, then you just continue to move on, right? So I think speed, I've said in many different podcasts, speed is a significant advantage for us and to any other fast growth company.
Yeah. And I mean, this is also, like, as I said, one of the main things that I appreciate about you specifically as the founder and like the whole relationship we had. The speed, right? Like wanting to test things, wanting to move forward, because we see this sometimes with other people that they don't prioritize speed and they get stuck, right? Or they don't want to test, or they get comfortable at a certain stage. They get comfortable with the product, they get comfortable with the marketing, they get comfortable with everything that they run, and they just want to quote unquote chill a bit. But with you guys, it's like you always push the needle, right? You always still push the throttle hard, and like it almost feels like every single day you question everything in a good way, right? Like, is this the best possible way that we could be doing marketing? Is this the best possible offer that we can give to consumers? Is this the best possible formula of the product? And that's like one thing that I think is just so outstanding and differentiating about you guys, that you like never get comfortable.
Yeah, correct. I think once you get comfortable, then to be fair, it becomes less interesting even for myself. I think, regardless if it's good or not, the growth is kind of like a drug, right? Because it's like this dopamine effect, at least for myself and for the team that I work with. And so I'm constantly striving to do better and greater. And again, the numbers are what the numbers are, but I think again we want to have a tenacity, and the speed creates also our competitive advantage, right? Because I think once you get comfortable, this is where you lose the competitive advantage, and we want to maintain or create greater gaps between us and our competitors, right? And the only way you can do that is to moving fast. And even right now, again, you mentioned, we were at 100 million ARR after 11 months. I mean, right now we're hitting 180 million ARR as of April, right? And this is our 15, 16 month. And then so I think we want to set new barriers, right?
Yeah, for sure. Sweet. I think we covered a lot of ground. There were a lot of interesting things already. I have two more sections, right? So this first section, just a couple of hot takes that I want to ask you, and then afterwards, just to close the interview, a couple of things, just looking at the future of your company and you yourself. So number one for the hot takes, and this can be super straightforward, right? Can also be short answers. What do you think 99% of direct-to-consumer brands get wrong fundamentally?
99% of, yeah. I mean, I think going back to what I was talking about, right? You just have to get the product right. If you get the product right, then it just opens up so much opportunity, for you to do so much with marketing, partnerships, branding, positioning, blah, blah, blah. So I think a lot of TT's founders, maybe they're looking at more shortcuts and then just kind of really good on marketing, but then you don't have that retention piece. And you only have the retention piece and customers coming back to buy your product if your product's good. So I think kind of reversing that logic there, you just have to, 99% of your time initially should be focused on product.
Yeah. Okay, sweet. That's interesting. What is one thing that you hate about the supplement industry, but you cannot change it?
I think one thing I hate about the supplement industry is actually not regulated, right? And then so that means any competitor, anyone with a garage tomorrow, they can set up shop tomorrow and start selling some supplements out of the garage, right? And you have no idea, especially in the age of AI and etc. wise, right? You just don't know. And then so that means there's a lot of bad eggs or bad apples out there. But also for us, and we saw that, right? A lot of people, when I mentioned to them I won't get into the supplements, I was like, oh, Danny, don't get into it. Yeah, because it's highly competitive. There's all these, again, bad eggs, bad apples, but I actually saw that as opportunities. Like, you know what? Why don't we set a new standard in the supplement industry to do clinical trials, to do third-party testing, to do NSF certified sport? In fact, right now we're investing just this year, in the next 12 to 18 months, $2 million USD on 3 clinical trials, right? And then this is also unheard of, right, for a supplement brand. Yeah, right? It's like if you're a customer, you're like, oh, we're going to be spending $2 million just on clinical trials, and I don't know the outcome of these clinical trials. That means, again, we're confident about the product, but because we're willing to spend that money, that means, again, hey, you have something that we can show the efficacy of that product. Yeah,
that's super interesting. The next one, artificial intelligence in the direct-to-consumer space. I know that you're using AI a lot. Do you think generally it's a hype or it's a real lever for direct-to-consumer brands?
I think it's a real lever. I mean, not just for direct-to-consumer brands. I think in general, right? For any individual, regardless if you have a brand, business, or even just personal, it's a significant lever because now knowledge is free. You can be an expert in whatever you want as long as you know how to prompt the systems, right? So I think it's 100%. Early on, been huge fans of AI. Use AI like minimum of 2 to 3 hours on a daily basis. Going from Claude Code, and Manus, which are my key tools right now.
Yeah, sweet. And the last hot take: if you were 12 or 18 again today and you were starting from zero, what would you build today?
I mean, in today's environment, again, definitely have to do something with AI and AI in medicine, because I think those are where the biggest opportunities will come from in terms of identifying new novel medicines, new novel therapies, for cancer, dementia, in that category, because I think those are incredibly exciting areas where I don't feel that enough talk is in those areas. But I think AI is going to change in the next 5 to 10 years how we think about health and proactive health.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, sweet. I appreciate those hot takes. Then now to close this interview, just a quick look into the future. On the one side, IM8, on the other side, you personally. You already just mentioned that you're right now sitting at that around 100 million ARR already in April 2026.
No, 180.
Yeah, 180.
Oh yeah, I think 180.
Okay, yeah, no, 180. And I think right now, or at least you were aiming before to sit at around 300 million ARR by the end of 2026. What are your current goals with this company for this year, for the next couple of years? You already mentioned global brand. Now you mentioned that you're giving back a lot to communities, right? To women, to children. What is like the huge thing for you that makes this a big success for the next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, so I think we want to just reach as many people as possible, right? With our product, we know it's incredibly helpful for many individuals. I mean, I get constant emails from people or Instagram messages in terms of how it's helped them with their diet, digestion. Even yesterday, I got a message, an individual emailed me about how it's helped their eczema. Yeah, and she's had it since birth. And then so that gives us incredible feel and motivation to continue to do better. I think in the next thing, I would say next 3 to 5 years, we believe IM8 can be one of the world's biggest supplement brands. Yeah, and again, we're already shipping to 40 plus countries, so there's still significant opportunity, significant upside. By the end of this year, we'll launch 3 new products. I think these also will be incredibly exciting products. Yeah, and then also I believe shareholders in Prenetics will also significantly benefit from our upside, because I think probably the only supplement brand which is publicly listed on the NASDAQ. And then that's kind of a unique aspect where typically DTC companies, all of the data is private, but our data on a quarterly basis, we have to report earnings, right? So I think it's very public, so people can kind of see our trajectory, our traction, the data, the metrics, and everything, which is open book. And it also makes us special from day one. It's very, very transparent as an organization, as a brand. You can download all of the third-party testing results online. We give you all of that data so everyone can see, look through that.
Yeah. I think, and I do have one question that actually sits perfectly in this context. You've said this a lot of times that you put excess cash into Bitcoin, right? So one of the last facts was around 1 Bitcoin a day that you're buying. For people, especially for e-commerce founders who are not that native with crypto, what is the lesson behind that? Like, what is your main decision paradigm behind putting a lot of cash into cryptocurrency?
So to be fair, we've stopped that, right? I'm not sure. So we stopped that as of December 4th in terms of buying Bitcoin, but we still have 510 Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And to be fair, I think part of that rationale there was that IM8 is growing so fast, right? And anything that is not part of this growth is a distraction. And then so going back to your point, I think for founders and operators, etc., don't try to do 2-3 brands. Sometimes people try to do too much. They try to get consulting gigs on the side, whatever. If you believe in a product, you have a strong product market fit, just go all in. And then that's where, again, even for me, sometimes I get distracted, right? There's so much opportunity that comes myself, but I say, no, like 99% of the time, right? And then so I think you just have to go all in. And right now we're all in on, IM8 and Prenetics.
Yeah, no. I mean, this has been fantastic. So the last question, and I mean, there have been so many learnings, so many valuable pieces and gold nuggets. If there's just one thing out of all of this that we've covered today that someone listening could take away with, what would you give this person if it could literally just be one thing for them?
Well, I think that, right now, one thing is, I think with all the things that we talked about, right? This is an amazing time to build a company. Right? I think amazing time to go all in. There's so much opportunity, especially with the utilization of AI. Again, going back to the early question, just start with a good product. Don't overcomplicate things. Yeah? If you have build your company or brand around a strong product, understand all of the competitors, and then identify and ask yourself, hey, is this truly a differentiated product? Because a lot of founders also, they're not realistic with themselves, I feel. and they can't. I was like, why is your product better than XYZ? They're like, yeah, I don't know. Right? So if you can't answer why it's better, then you shouldn't be building that company or that brand.
Yeah, 100%. No, Danny, this has been a pleasure. Thanks so much for your time. And thank you so much for all of the valuable stuff that you mentioned on this podcast.
Great. Thanks so much, Carl. I appreciate it.